3 days ago, the internet decided Sophie Cunningham was the villain of the WNBA. Lawmakers were talking about her. National news was talking about her. And almost nobody was on her side. Tonight, she walked onto that court and did something that shut every single one of those people up. And she wasn't even the biggest story of the night. Because before the ball was even tipped, the Indiana Fever's own head coach got booed by her own home crowd. And by the time the final buzzer sounded, 10 different records had fallen in a single game. Stick with me, because what happened in the final 3 minutes of this game is the part nobody is talking about yet, and I promise you, you do not want to miss it. But before we get into it, if you love raw, honest basketball breakdowns like this one, do me a favor and hit subscribe right now. Not for me. For yourself. Because this Fever team is about to make a run at history, and if you're not subscribed, you're going to miss it happen in real time. Every big night, every record, every meltdown, it all lands here first. So hit that button, turn on notifications, and let's get into it. Let's rewind 3 days. Sophie Cunningham was going up for a routine layup against the Chicago Sky when Dejonae Carrington caught her across the face and neck hard enough to draw blood. Carrington was ejected. Then Carrington posted about white privilege from the locker room and tagged the Fever. What should have stayed a basketball incident exploded into a national story. Politicians weighed in. Former players weighed in. And somehow, in the chaos, a huge chunk of the online conversation turned against Cunningham herself. So when the Fever walked into Gainbridge Fieldhouse to face a championship-contending New York Liberty team just 3 days later, the pressure on Cunningham was enormous. And she answered it in the most emphatic way possible. She shot 4 for 5 from three-point range. She scored 12 points off the bench in just 22 minutes. And by the time the dust settled on a 106-92 blowout win over the Liberty, she had quietly become the most efficient high-volume three-point shooter in the entire WNBA this season, sitting above 45% from deep on the year. Not Sabrina Ionescu. Not Kelsey Plum. Sophie Cunningham. Here's why that number matters so much. Most players who take that many threes see their percentage drop as the season goes on, because defenses start scouting them and running them off the line. Cunningham's has held up. That tells you defenses know exactly how dangerous she is and still can't stop her. And the timing could not have been more perfect. This was the same week she was being painted as the villain of the league. Teammates and coaches described her mindset that week with one word: locked in. Not rattled. Not playing it safe. She kept firing like the noise outside the arena didn't exist. Every time she hit a three, it forced the Liberty defense to make an impossible choice. Sprint out and close on Cunningham, or leave her open and pay for it. And every time they sprinted out to close on her, it ripped a hole open somewhere else on the floor. That hole is exactly where Caitlin Clark lives. Now let's talk about Clark, because what she did in this game is the kind of thing that usually takes players a decade to accomplish. Clark finished with 22 points and 10 assists. That alone would be a great night for most guards. But that stat line pushed her career total of 10 assist games to 19 for her career, a total that's already higher than several entire WNBA franchises have produced combined across their whole history. Think about that. Not more than most players. More than entire team histories. She also picked up her 29th career double-double, a mark that puts her third all-time among guards in league history, and she's done it in just over 80 career games. Most players who reached that number needed a decade to get there. Clark is doing it before she's even finished her third season. And this game pushed her season assist total to 9 games with 20-plus points and 10-plus assists in the same night, nearly double the previous single-season record. Nobody else in WNBA history has more than 5 of those games in one season, ever. Kelsey Mitchell was every bit Clark's equal on this night. She scored 20 of her 28 points in the first half alone, shooting an efficient 11 for 16 from the field and 4 for 4 from 3. That means by halftime, Mitchell had already put up her scoring number for the entire night, forcing New York's coaching staff to completely rewrite their defensive game plan at the break, because now they weren't just dealing with Clark. They were dealing with two nightmares at once. This game also extended Mitchell's streak of 20-plus point games to 17 straight, a new single-season franchise record that she's still adding to every time she steps on the floor. Put Clark and Mitchell together and you get something even bigger. This marked the 13th time this season the two of them have both scored 20 or more points in the same game, the most by any duo in WNBA history. And this wasn't even a two-woman show. Aliyah Boston added 19 points and 7 rebounds playing at an all-star level inside, and 5 different Fever players finished in double figures. That's the 15th time this season Indiana has hit the 100-point mark, and this time they got there by shooting an absurd 64% from three as a team, one of the best three-point shooting nights by any team in league history. Now here's the part of this story that almost got buried by everything else, and it's the part one promised you at the start. Before any of this happened on the court, Fever head coach Stephanie White walked out for her pre-game media session and got booed by her own home crowd. Live. Inside her own building. That almost never happens to a coach before her team has even taken the floor. The backlash traced back to what she'd said after the Carrington incident days earlier, when she suggested the foul wasn't intentional and praised Carrington's competitiveness, a response a lot of fans felt failed to fully back her own player. By the time she stood at that podium again on game night, the frustration in the building was loud enough to hear clearly. White didn't back down. She stood there and delivered an emotional, defiant statement, saying the hate and the fear-mongering trying to hijack the league would not win, and that she stands by her players no matter what. The reaction split the room. Some fans and front office voices backed her completely. Others were still clearly frustrated. And in the middle of all that noise, White had to go coach her team against a legitimate championship contender in the biggest game of their season so far. So imagine the pressure in that locker room walking into tip-off. A coach getting booed at home. A public firestorm still swirling. And a genuine title contender waiting on the other side of the court. Now watch what happened next, because this is where it gets good. The Fever came out and looked completely unbothered. Calm. Controlled. Almost businesslike, like they'd taken every ounce of that outside noise and turned it into fuel instead of letting it become a distraction. They built a 21-point first-half lead. New York briefly clawed the deficit down to single digits in the third quarter, but Indiana answered immediately and never let it get close again. After the game, Clark didn't dodge the topic when reporters brought it up. She said plainly that hearing her own fans boo her head coach made her feel sick, and that the team was never losing that game for her. Cunningham backed her coach publicly too, explaining that White simply hadn't seen a clear replay of the foul in real time when she made her original comments, and that inside the locker room, there was no rift at all. That's not something players say to fill space in a press conference. That's a locker room telling you exactly where it stood before the ball was even tipped. A coach getting booed in her own building. A star player admitting it made her sick to her stomach. And somehow, this same group turned around and delivered a 14-point win over one of the best teams in the league on the very same night. Now think about everything that happened in this one single game. 10 records broken. A player who was being torn apart online 3 days earlier walking away with the best three-point shooting mark in the league. A head coach booed by her own fans, then defended by her own locker room hours later, live in front of cameras. And a 14-point win over a genuine championship contender, all in the same 40 minutes of basketball. That is not a normal night. That is a team that just told the entire league exactly what they're capable of heading into the stretch run. So here's my question for you. With Clark still building her MVP case, with Mitchell scorching hot, with Cunningham suddenly the most accurate three-point shooter in the league, and with Boston playing at an all-star level inside, what should this Fever team do to finish the season strong and make a real run in the playoffs? Drop your answer in the comments, I read every single one. And before you go, if this breakdown kept you locked in, don't scroll past that subscribe button. This team is only getting louder from here, and the next chapter of this story could be even bigger than tonight. You will not want to find out about it late. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.